Okay, we are skipping the next break in between votes in the House and doing his work and his lunch. He's joining us. He'll be with us till about 23:24 after. So note to networks, we're skipping the next break. Congressman Ron Paul joins us, former presidential candidate as Libertarian, then for president. He has been, for decades, warning about how the international banking system would cause a world implosion. He's been intensely warning the last few months on national television in Congress and here on this radio show. And I specifically want to get from him the breakdown of what's happening, this unprecedented power that the Treasury is asking for to make itself a private hedge fund, and also to give themselves amnesty from any crimes that have been committed by the financial order. Paul Watson has the headline on prisonplanet.com. Bush and McCain blackmail America with economic terrorism. The two parties have circled the wagons. They're saying you must give us unlimited power and $5 trillion, according to Bloomberg's, the real number, Bloomberg Financial, or depression will strike, which itself is enough to send the markets into oblivion. So please, Congressman Ron Paul, who was just questioning Bernanke in the Banking Committee yesterday, the only one asking real questions, tell us what we're truly facing right now. Who are the culprits? Do people need to be brought to justice for this so that the criminal activity stops? And what is your idea of a plan to try to avert what's happening versus their stick-up bailout? Congressman.
Well, obviously it is very, very serious, and we've been warning about it, as you have on your radio program, and it's here. But when they say that if we don't do exactly as they say and turn over more of our money and more of our liberties and exempt themselves from any court in the whole nation, they're trying to intimidate us and stampede us into doing the wrong thing. But they're also right when they say that if they don't do that, we're going to have serious problems. Yes, we are, but we're going to have much more serious problems if we do. Yeah, that's what they want, and they don't want any review of any court. So they want dictatorship. They want to pass all the penalty and suffering on the average person on Main Street. They talk about illiquid assets, but what they should say is assets that have no value. Then everybody would know what they're talking about. And they just want to dump the real assets on us, and the bankers and others who are in special locations will pick up pieces of the good assets that were left over. And we will have a depression or recession. It's locked in place due to the previous Federal Reserve action. The only question is whether this will last 1 year or 10 years and a full decade, and we lose a lot of liberties in the meantime. And I was saying earlier that it looks like, from what I sense in this Congress, they're opting out for a decade plus of depression, rather than saying, well, let's correct our ways, let's balance the budget, let's cut taxes, let's bring our troops home and do all sensible things. And what they're going to do is more of the same of printing money and spending, so that will prolong the agony and prevent the correction that is mandatory.
If we're talking about 13 to 15% real inflation compounded, that is going to be devastating to people on fixed incomes. But the general economy itself is already grinding to a halt right here in Texas, even in Austin, supposedly the most successful city in the country right now. Things are bad, Congressman.
Yeah, and, we've had an addition over in our area, along the coast, we've had the addition of the hurricane problem. But, if you're starting to feel it there, you can imagine what it must be like living in Nevada and California and Michigan and all these other places that have been suffering for a lot longer than a month or two. It's been a year or two, and there's still a long way to go. And my point is, as long as you prevent and slow up the liquidation and the correction, the longer the pain and the suffering lasts.
What about criminal charges? I mean, there's no doubt that the brokerage firms and hedge funds that put out all this fake paper knew they were engaging in criminal activities. I mean, don't we need to have some investigations and then prosecutions so that Wall Street will stop engaging in these activities?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, but probably if you wanted to prosecute the most guilty party, you'd have to prosecute the Federal Reserve Board and the politicians who promote that, because that's where the biggest fraud is. Yes, that is true. This encourages fraud and deceit and all this speculation. But I like to see that as local as possible. Just remember, not too many years ago when Enron went bankrupt, it motivated everybody to say, hey, there's not enough regulation, so they passed Sarbanes-Oxley, which was totally unnecessary and has hurt our economy. And Enron people were prosecuted under Texas anti-fraud laws So
I agree.
The whole idea of getting the FBI involved, that's sort of the FBI BATF approach, and we don't like national police. So, yes, they should be convicted and put in prison when they defrauded the public.
So you want to see state grand juries in the proper role under the 10th Amendment that have very serious teeth, and the crime is public, so they need to convene grand juries right now.
Yeah, and we have proper authority for that, and it's and an experience with it. And I think the Enron case is a good example.
Okay, solutions. I mean, you have won World Economic Awards. I know you don't like to toot your horn, but you've won some of the most prestigious awards out there by different schools of economics. Of course, the Austrian school, the von Mises Institute. What is your plan? What would you do right now if you were the president and you were having this meeting coming up in a few hours? What would Ron Paul do?
Of course, you have to realize a constitutional president is cautious about not becoming a dictator himself. I know what the policy should be, of course, and you have to find out what the Congress is going to do. But there would be a lot you could do. You could probably, I think the most important thing is to send the message that we're going to quit living beyond our means. And a president can set the standard for that, and he has the most control under the Constitution on foreign policy. He could say, look, no more wars. We're done with these wars. We're not going to take on the Russians. We're not going to go take on people in Venezuela. We're going to start talking to the Cubans and bring our troops home and save hundreds of billions of dollars. That would send a powerful message that the dollar would respond to, and actually oil prices would come down. But then you have to get a consensus. You have to get people to say, look, are you ready for a new idea about government, something that the founders knew about? Government should be limited to protecting liberties. We have to talk about unraveling the welfare state, and we have to give up our ideas of world empire. And that is the most important thing a president could do. In the meantime, the policy ought to be shrink the size of government, decrease the regulation, work toward the sound money, remove the authority of the Fed to create money out of thin air, and get tax reduction. We need radical tax reduction. They want more money in the economy. Well, if we didn't have an income tax and did away with the spending, we'd all be a lot richer. And all of a sudden, I think we would thrive in a short period of time. I would permit the liquidation of debt to continue.